Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome to what is going to be my final video on this topic because, believe it or not, Bring Back National Dex is functionally dead. Okay, so what do I mean by this? Well, first and foremost, and probably the most important point I should bring up, is the announcement of Pokemon Home during the Pokemon Direct, which we've gotten more information about recently-ish, and for lack of a better word, it has the National Dex in it. Physically, the National Dex is functionally in the game. I mean, it's an external thing now, yes, but it is, in a functional sense, part of Gen 8 now. So, already we got a strike one against the whole protest thing. So now there's no longer a protest for the actual National Dex anymore, because yes, we still got a couple Pokemon that aren't in Sword and Shield, but that's actually where the second part of this actually comes in. So, as I've discussed a little bit in my playthrough of Sword and Shield, that Game Freak has actually decided to do away with the dual versions and the enhanced versions of the Pokemon. I mean, yes, we still have Sword and Shield, but now instead of having Super Sword and Super Shield, we're going to be having DLC packs, which are basically you can buy DLC for both games for the same price as one of them, which effectively means is that the DLC packs are half as much as they would be for an enhanced version. So instead of buying an enhanced version for $60, you're spending half that much to turn Sword and Shield into the enhanced versions. So yeah, that's actually a great way to start it off, and it's actually a really good idea, because now we no longer are going to have a repeat of Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which was a lot of people's complaint worst in the series, because it was effectively just Sun and Moon with a fresh coat of paint. That's all it was. They changed a little bit here or there with Sun and Moon, and then with Sun and Moon's basically their expansion packs, because they called Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon expansion packs, because functionally there wasn't much different. There was a different climax, there was a different post game, but more or less they were the same exact games with a different coat of paint on them. And people didn't like that about Sword and Shield, about Sun and Moon, and they were hoping that Gen 8 would maybe not continue the tradition of that. And then they did. People got mad at it anyway, but they did indeed fix the problem that Gen 7 had, which is that now the enhanced versions are DLC rather than just being a whole new game. So Game Freak is starting to move forward with the whole embracing DLC as the way of the future thing, and that's actually pretty good. And the main takeaway from this is that they actually added half of the Pokemon. Like in terms of dex size, they took half of what was already available in Sword and Shield already, and then they increased it by that much. So now instead of 400, we're now going to have 600. So not as many Pokemon are missing, but this way we have a much bigger dex and it's a lot more expanded, and that's a great idea of how to do it. Just patching them in as DLC, as part of the DLC, rather than all at once. So yeah, Game Freak has been working on embracing that as the way of the future and the way moving forward. So that's actually kind of good. But then there's also the fact that Sword and Shield sold insanely well. It is the 5th highest selling unit, in terms of units at least, is the 5th highest selling video game on the Switch. And might even be the second, because we haven't even seen the sales numbers for January yet. But based on the research I've seen from other YouTubers who are far more qualified than I am, they've actually pointed out that the sales might be higher and it may be the second highest selling. We don't know, because they haven't released numbers for January yet as of this video. If they do wind up doing it, I don't know. I probably won't talk about it. I might talk about it in my playthrough somewhat, but I probably won't do my own video on it. But yeah, Sword and Shield are the 5th highest and are dangerously close from outselling other games on the platform. So yeah, there's not really a lot that BBND has left in its arsenal. I mean, it's like, yeah, there's a new thing that's bringing up called Bring Back All Pokemon, but that's not going to do anything. In fact, I'm pretty sure it has been having the opposite effect. It's something, I forget what the name is called, but it's effectively, there's this effects of psychology where if you try really hard to try and suppress something that you don't want getting popular, it actually has the opposite effect and becomes more popular. And that's exactly what happened with Bring Back National Decks. So what happened was people hated the games, they protested the games, they wanted the games to be changed for the better, or at least what their version of for the better is. And ironically, it wound up getting a lot of attention, and a lot of people were curious as to, I wonder if the criticism against this game is warranted, and then they wound up buying the games anyway and started playing it. So, yeah, that was kind of a big oof. But, yeah, Bring Back National Decks is kind of functionally dead because they're kind of running out of ammunition to actually levy against the games. I mean, some of it is superficial and doesn't really matter all that much. I mean, if you put this game in front of the children it's marketed toward, they're probably not going to notice anything like graphics or funny game design. I mean, there are some things in the game that definitely do warrant some criticism. Like, for example, some of the new abilities don't work quite the way they're supposed to. For example, Duraludon, its ability Stalwart kind of doesn't work entirely as it's supposed to. Because the way Stalwart works is that you're not able to use moves that target a specific Pokemon on that Pokemon, but the end result was that it just kind of causes it to break if it's used on by an ally. So if an ally tries to use a move that targets Duraludon, it breaks and then doesn't do what it's supposed to. So yeah, some of that needs to be fixed, but for the most part the games are solid. I mean, some people have complained that some of the moves are cut, and that's not okay, but most of them are Z moves or moves that nobody are going to miss. For example, there are five or six different moves that all reduce speed. So yeah, those got cut, and most of them are Z moves, which aren't in the games because Z moves were a Gen 7 specific thing. So obviously we're not going to be seeing those anytime soon. But then there are also moves that people think should have been in the game and aren't. For example, Vespiquen's signature move Heal Order isn't in the game, but then again, Vespiquen's already pretty tanky to begin with. It already has an ability called Defend Order, which just raises its stats by 2 each. It raises its defenses, and then it becomes very tanky. So giving it such an overpowered recovery move on top of that, yeah, I can see why that one got cut. And then there's Hidden Power, which I kind of understand why people are upset about, but then again, the way Hidden Power works is that it's dependent on your, IVs. So, depending on what your IVs are, it'll be a different type, which it takes kind of a steep learning curve, and I can see why they cut that out. And then there's also Frustration and Return, which are dependent on Friendship, but it's kind of hard to get it to do what you want because you have no idea what increases friendship and what decreases friendship, so they cut that out. But for the most part, most of the moves that they decided to cut out were either Z moves that were too hard to figure out, or moves that were just made a Pokemon kind of broken. So yeah, I can see why they removed some of those. But yeah, and then some people are upset about the Mega Evolution. I understand that. I understand why people are upset with Mega Evolution, because Mega Evolution was this big thing in Gen 6 and for a little bit in Gen 7. And then in Gen 8 they got rid of it entirely and replaced it with Dynamax. I can understand why people are upset about that, but at the same time Dynamax is just ultimately better than both of them because it combines them both and it combines aspects from both of them, but at the same time it doesn't make them completely overpowered. Like there's 3, like you can use it for 3 turns as opposed to Z moves 1, and it doesn't last forever, unlike Mega Evolution. So it's a balance between the two. I understand why they decided to go with that. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to come back into the later games, but I'm sure Game Freak will find a way to yada yada it into the next games, and then we'll have it forever and always. But yeah, for the most part, that's really it. There's not many criticisms that can be leveled against Sword and Shield. There are a couple sticking points. Like there are a couple of things that they may or may not actually be a problem. Like the Wycom. The Wycom is kind of a mess because it's not really integrated all that well. But at the same time, I don't really use Wycom all that much, and you're most likely not going to be using Wycom all that much. So does it really matter if this isn't as working as well as it should be? I don't think so. I don't think it matters. But yeah, for the most part, there's not really much criticism to levy against Sword and Shield because people, again, much more qualified than I am, have pointed out that all of these criticisms are kind of invalid at this point. There's a lot of things that people have tried to levy at Sword and Shield, but then people do some basic research and you realize, no, none of this criticism really holds up. Like, for example, there was like this criticism where it's like, oh, you can make Pokemon in 5 minutes, it's no problem. And there was even for a brief time, there was even a challenge about that. But then Game Freak came along, said that they knew full well about the 5-minute Pokemon challenge, pointing out that it actually takes several months to make a single Pokemon, and that was where it was left at. So, yeah. Yeah, I think the problem with Bring Back National Dex is that it's mainly just a bunch of people who don't really know how game design works, and that was really what it boiled down to. It was like everybody has their own opinion of how Pokemon is supposed to play out first and foremost, and then all of those things just didn't line up with what Game Freak wanted. So ultimately, people got mad at Game Freak because Game Freak got a different vision than they did about what the future of Pokemon was. So yeah, ultimately, I think that was mainly what it was. Yeah, there are still people who are spamming the hashtag on Twitter, not surprisingly, but for the most part, Bring Back National Dex is functionally dead. It isn't really contributing to anything. People are just kind of spamming it into the ether to try and prove that they care about Pokemon, but they don't really care about Pokemon because it's kind of complicated. I think the problem is that some people have just grown out of Pokemon, and that's okay, but I don't think these people have realized that they've actually grown out of Pokemon. I think they just want to hold on to whatever is left of their childhood, and that's causing some detrimental problems. But yeah, I feel like Bring Back National Dex might be functionally dead because now that Sword and Shield is one of the highest selling Pokemon games on the planet, and Game Freak is doing right by the fans, they're running out of ammunition, and it's only a matter of time before people eventually realize that that's kind of pointless, and then it just kind of slowly stops altogether as it goes several games into the future. If we're several games into the future and we're still singing Bring Back National Dex on every single post that Pokemon makes, we may have a problem there, but for the most part, I don't think it will have much staying power in Generation 9 or 10 or any of those afterward. So yeah, overall, I feel like the protest kind of died in a functional sense. It's not doing anything anymore. I don't think it's really worth talking about much anymore because the only people who are spamming it are people who kind of aren't really Pokemon fans anymore. So, if you guys did enjoy my little talk about the Bring Back National Dex movement and how it basically died, what did you guys think? Let me know in the comment section. Do you think Bring Back National Dex was warranted, or do you think it's kind of run its course and now it's no longer doing what it was intended to do? But for right now, though, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also, check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month, and it really helps me out, so I definitely appreciate it if you did that. But, yeah, it's only a couple bucks a month. You guys get access to a bunch of cool perks and my way saying thanks, so be sure to check those out. But anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!